Hi, this is an episode of the Defiant Business Podcast, your Monday through Friday 10-minute shot of business knowledge. So I know you don't have a lot of time, so we're just going to go right into it. So I'm in school actually right now. And for a course project, we had to read a paper that used the movie Keeping Up with the Joneses as a way to illustrate the different types of marketing deception. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Marketing deception, the bad marketers versus the rebellion. And so when I say rebellion, I'm actually referring to Mark Schaefer's book, The Marketing Rebellion, another business book I highly recommend. Just kind of a brief synopsis. He talks about how we are in what he considers the third marketing rebellion, and it's reflected in all of the types of marketing that are most likely to succeed. And that's part of why content marketing is so important today. People just want to make up their own minds. They want people to be honest. And that's why marketing deception, especially the way that it can be employed, especially the way that it can be employed these days, is a terrible response to the marketing rebellion. So it's also called stealth marketing. And it's when marketers disguise marketing communications with the intent to influence the consumer. And I'd like to note that word influence. So it's dishonest, right? Because you're trying to get people to do something that they may or may not have done if they knew that your intent was to get them to spend money. And that's why we have to disclose things like affiliate links. And that's, kind of where the dishonesty with influencer marketing comes from. So with your macro influencers, right? It's easier to see, oh, this person is an influencer. Like everything they put on their Instagram, they're trying to sell me. So it's like a big sale. So more companies are getting tied to micro influencers. And so these are people with smaller but more engaged communities. And that's typically why they work better than macro influencers, or they can work better than macro influencers because their audiences are more engaged. However, it may be harder for a consumer to understand or kind of suss out that this person is an influencer and they were paid for that post. And so that's why now, influencers have to identify each post. Hey, I was paid to post this. They have to identify that. So it's interesting, especially tied with that word influence. So according to this paper, this research paper that we read, and it's on sciencedirect.com. I'll include a link in the show notes. There are 6 types of marketing deception or stealth marketing. And the first one is kind of a given. It's the marketer to consumer deception. And that's the premise of the entire movie, Keeping Up with the Joneses. So if you haven't seen this movie before, it's a family but they're not actually a family, and they move into a suburban neighborhood. It's a son, teenage daughter, beautiful woman, wife, and very handsome husband. And they move into this suburb with the intent of influencing the people to make purchases without disclosing that they're actually marketing. And so the girl, she's trying to get people to buy like makeup and clothes, and the boys like sports and electronics and stuff. And then the husband's like high-end men, look, identified as male luxuries. I'm not saying women can't enjoy a cigar, but typically it's a male thing. And then, of course, the wife, she's like the ringleader. She's in charge of it. And she tries to get the women to buy like high-end luxuries as well, but, clothing and things like that, things for the kitchen and whatnot. So I decided that so our task for our project was to determine which type of marketing was the most deceptive or the most harmful. And I decided that marketing or marketer to consumer deception was the most harmful. And the reason why is because as a marketer, I feel I have a professional obligation to be ethical and to be honest and to not have anybody feel like they've got the rug pulled out from under them. So I feel like that's always the most harmful. And no matter what type of marketing it is, the buck stops with the marketer who's paying for it or the marketer who's creating it. So, that's how I feel about it. So A real life example of this is when Sony hired a marketing company to create a fake fan site to generate buzz for one of their new products, to generate sales. And that for me as a content marketer, I was outright offended when I read about that, because I write content, and the content, yes, like the content is meant to help generate sales, but it's not framed in a dishonest way. Like the content that I write goes up on company websites, and it is meant to help clients or prospective clients or customers make a decision that will make them the most happy. And that is basically my reason for creating content. Like if you get a sale from this, it's because you were the customer or client decided you were the best solution. And that's what our content is meant to do, not in a dishonest way, but in an informative, entertaining way that helps the customer choose you because you are the best choice. So the next type of deception the research paper explored was consumer to marketer deception. And I feel like this one's really more of a defense mechanism. And so you're like, how does a consumer lie to the marketer? Well, if you've ever gone onto a website and you needed to give your email address for something and you gave a throwaway email address that you don't actually check, then that would be you deceiving the marketer. And so, this kind of comes out when everybody's trying to gate things all the time. And, so in the paper, they likened it to people going to the dealership without the intent of buying the car. They just wanted to drive it. The other one was marketer to marketer deception. And that's basically it could be deceiving current partners so they make poor decisions and you can kind of swoop in and get some of their market share. So that's kind of a bit higher up. It's not, direct to the consumer. And then consumer to consumer, I thought this one was really interesting. Consumer to consumer deception typically involves collecting or influencing without informing. So much like the marketer consumer deception. And their example was the Girls Intelligence Agency, which I didn't even know was a thing, but they employ like 40,000 girls ages 8 to like 29. And they gather intelligence through like slumber parties and stuff. And so basically they're holding focus groups without telling the people who are involved, which is terrible. And then the last two are marketer, like self-deception. So marketer self-deception and consumer self-deception. And these, and this happens, one of the biggest ones for marketer self-deception, you can kind of see it in like the tobacco companies, how they failed to adapt once all those research studies and things started coming out. They just kept, acting like business was normal. Yeah, we put the warning label on there. Yeah, everything, but it's still good. It's fine. They didn't really do anything, I think, with any innovative type marketing to kind of change the discussion around what was going on. Especially for tobacco, it's an addictive product. So they're like, yeah, we got these people. It's fine, whatever. And then also consumer self-deception. And I think this is something that as marketers, again, like we are trying to influence people to make purchases. And like I said, my mission, I want to do it as, it's an ethical thing. I love the code of ethics from the American Marketing Association. But, as a consumer, and you can probably admit it, I can admit it, as a consumer, we allow ourselves to get got, basically, and get convinced to buy things. And so when you do have a regret around something that you've purchased, you really have to think back. Like, yeah, the marketing was great, but I mean, did that Facebook ad to that landing page, to that second landing page, was that really the thing that caused you to buy? Or were you trying to serve some other ideal? Like, did your friend buy it so you want to buy it? So we kind of deceive ourselves in terms of what we need and how much we can afford. And that was one of the big cruxes of the movie. I don't want to ruin it if you haven't seen it. But that was one of the big cruxes of the movie, that consumer self-deception. So we got to be on the lookout, guys. Ethical marketing only. You don't want your customers or clients to feel like you're lying to them. All right. That's how you get a hater for life. They will hate you forever and they will tell everyone about it because you tricked them. Right. And I put that in air quotes, tricked. Right. Although maybe it really is a trick if you're employing any of the stealth marketing tactics. All right. That's been an episode of the Defiant Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ruthie. Please leave us a comment or a review. You don't understand how important those things are to a successful and thriving podcast. Let us know what you liked about this episode. Give us some feedback. I live on feedback, so talk to me, please. And I will see you next time.